If you're an indie game dev, chances are you don't have a big team. Maybe it's just you or you and one other person. That means if you're creating games by yourself, you're gonna have to do everything by yourself. And let's just say for simplicity's sake, it's a 2D game. You're gonna have to do all the sprites and drawings by yourself. You're gonna have to do the art by yourself. You're gonna have to do the music by yourself. You're gonna have to do the level design by yourself. You're gonna have to do the enemies by yourself. You're gonna have to do the boss fight by yourself. You're gonna have to do the program by yourself. You're gonna have to do the story by yourself. You're gonna have to do everything by yourself. Now, it's obviously that gets overwhelming. So then you would want to cut down on the workload any place possible. That's why a momentum-based game like Rayman is better than a platformer like Cuphead. Because instead of having to build all these different levels for all these different locations, you can instead build the player character's moveset and just have that be what's fun. Now obviously this is not me saying, oh, just build boring, bland levels because your character's fun. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, instead of putting all your time and effort and resources into level designing and all the art and enemies and doing all these different things for that, you can instead make a character that's fun to control, and through that, you can save time and money. In my opinion, this is best explained through the empty room theory. I don't know if that's the actual name of it, I just made it up, but it's like a real thing. The question this theory asks is, if you take your player character and you put them in an empty room, is the game still fun to play? The point of this is to see, well, is the game still fun to play or does it get boring? In a game like Rayman, where you can jump, dive, punch, light punch, weak punch, dive, I already said that, ground pound, float, hold up your friends, play with friends, do all these different things, you're never going to run out of things to do, and you're never going to get bored, because with all these slopes, with all these different ways of affecting your momentum, with all these different things you can do, even if there's nothing to do, you're just going to be having fun jumping around. I mean, think about the lobby. I remember spending hours as a kid just jumping around in the lobby and doing flips and rolls. But then switch over to a game like Cuphead. That game has like 5 moves. 2 shots, 1 jump, 1 parry, 1 dash. That's basically it. And that's not me ripping on Cuphead for anything. That game is great. It's one of my personal favorites. But in that game, you would have to do so much more designing and spend more money and time on assets and level design where you could use it otherwise. And obviously the movement works for Cuphead. I'm just pointing out that a game like Cuphead, where it's not about how you move, but it's moving towards you, is harder to design than a game like Rayman, where the fun comes from what you're running towards. And I actually have a personal say in this too. Back in 2021, I designed a game called Super Kid the Game, where the player moved left, right, you could jump, attack, and dash, but you didn't really have any cool moves you could do. It was just run and maybe grab some cool power-up that affected your arsenal of moves and just get through the level, the gimmicky level. And it made designing enemies in the level so much more longer and harder. Like, one level would take me like 3 to 5 months because there's so much drawings and programming I had to do to make the level interesting because the player was boring. Now take this, the new Super Kid game, which I've started this year, or last year, or whatever, same thing. I made the player fun to move, and that meant instead of taking weeks and months and years to finish levels, I could instead already have a fun player that was fun to move and just build a basic few slopes and whatever and build enemies around that instead of making all these unique assets for it. This isn't me excusing lazy level design. No, this is me having more opportunities to have more parts of the level while not having to spend 3 years on one level. And that's why I personally think games like Rayman, where the characters are more focused on moving fast and momentum, are better than games like Cuphead, where it's more about dodging than moving through the levels. Because in a game like Cuphead, you have to do so much drawing, designing, programming, you have to make all these different levels and enemies, and you still have to do that for a game like Rayman, but when you have all these slopes and curves and moves, it makes it less obvious that you're lacking more. But let me know what you think in the comments, and this is Tough Puff Studios, signing off.